Iglesia en las Naciones. Recibamos desde los estudios internacionales de Telegracia, el deseado de las naciones, el Rey de Reyes, Señor de Señores, al doctor José Luis de Jesús, Jesucristo hombre.
I'm going to read one of these jewels of grace called the Disqualified. And it refers to those characters that God uses in history that have always been disqualified by the theology of the moment, by the presidents or kings of the times. And the author, Kudris, begins with Noah. But before that it says, a very particular characteristic that all the bearers and lovers of the truth in God in each dispensation is that they have always been disqualified by their own generation. Noah was seen as crazy in his days. He didn't pass the test of theology of his days. His announcement of things that had not yet taken place did not make sense for the contemporary science. To say that a flood would come and begin to build an ark at the top of a hill, and well, he was treated as if he were crazy. And that's why the days of the Son of Man are similar to the days of Noah. So let's continue. It says he appeared in his time doing things that no one had done and announcing things never seen or heard. They also had him for crazy, and the first of these was Noah. The second is Jesus of Nazareth. But before I explain the second one, look at what Kudris says here, announcing things never before seen or heard. That's why when I began to present the theology that there is no sin and that God ended sin 2,000 years ago, no one had ever heard that before. That the devil was destroyed, that had never been heard before. That we are angels in earthen vessels, that had never been heard before. Jesus of Nazareth, in the days of his flesh, his own generation and people said this of Jesus of Nazareth: he has demons and is not himself. This man is possessed. An eating and drinking man, friend with the publicans and sinners. Number 3, being a man, he makes himself God. He's possessed by demons. That's what John 10 verse 33 says. The Jews answered him, saying, for a good work we do not stone you, but for blasphemy, and because you, being a man, make yourself God. So he was disqualified by his people, and finally they killed him. In the topic, the disqualified, that Kudris presents here, it is men that God sends with a mission to say the truth. Then Jesus of Nazareth is completely disqualified. The same thing happened to David. It says that when David presented himself before Saul to confront Israel's greatest enemy, Goliath, he was belittled by his own brothers. Even more so his father. He didn't even introduce him to the prophet Samuel. When he said, I have a son, but what he does is care for sheep. So David was also neglected. And finally the king said, you cannot go against the Philistine and fight against him because you are too young. Therefore the king disqualified David, and Goliath also damned him. When he saw David, he damned him for presenting his God. Now the fourth disqualified one is the Apostle Paul, the fourth disqualified. In the days of his apostleship, all of his generation called Paul crazy. And finally, almost all of his followers abandoned him. Paul was totally disqualified. You remember, there in the book of Acts, when Paul arrived, they would say, "Here comes the one that rattles everyone's faith." There is always an Alexander, enemies, and a Judas that go against the bearer of the truth. And then what would occur with Jesus today in the days of his flesh, in the second coming to earth? It says it is prophesied in Luke 17:25. It says, "But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation." That's what Luke 17:25 says. Let's read it. "But first he must suffer many things and be neglected by this generation. And as it was in the days of Noah, it will be also in the days of the Son of Man." It says he didn't pass the test of theology of his time. And his warnings didn't make scientific sense to the wise of his time. The Son of Man is certainly being redundantly and despitefully rejected. He's being disqualified by his generation. The press rejects me. The radio rejects me. Television has rejected me. The great religious readers have rejected me. And the presidents of the nations avoid me. Naturally, we outsmarted them. I arrived, as Paul said, absent in the body, but present in spirit. The author of these jewels of grace says, man doesn't learn from the great lessons of the past. Each time that God manifested in a crucial moment in history, he always broke all the existent parameters and caught man trapped in the stubbornness of his own heart. The same thing is happening today. All the theological and prophetical expectations that the worldwide religious system has sustained for 2,000 years with respect to the second coming of Christ on earth are being broken, diminished, and made nothing. God turns this world's wisdom into madness to catch the wise in their great wisdom. Psalm 2:5 says, "Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure." When the Lord appeared, look at how this time the Lord makes it easier on them. God makes it easier on today's world. He would appear like a thief in the night, and a thief doesn't warn when he's coming. The one who would come to judge the Gentiles with Paul's gospel. The only one that has done this is growing in grace with the gospel of the uncircumcision. He appeared as another. Paul says another one will build over the foundation I will leave, which is Jesus Christ. He would appear as a ruler of the Gentiles, Romans 15, where it says that he would rule. The Gentiles awaited him. He appeared as the one and only shepherd, the only shepherd. Someone asked us that in Ephesians it says that he established pastors for the perfection of the saints in the church. That is correct, until the man Christ Jesus appeared. He is the great shepherd of all shepherds. And this is where pastoring ends. It's one pastor, one mind, one voice to keep the unity of the Spirit. So he appeared like the one who said, "I will walk and move among them." History repeats itself. And the author of these jewels ends by saying, "Unbeatably, God is a genius, singular, transcendental, and grand. I have been found disqualified by the world. But there is a beloved that has the gift of faith, that is established with a firm anchor of the soul, and those are the approved. Not those who disqualify, but those who approve. The ones that say, we know. Because when Jesus was once told, look, this one has demons, then someone said, but can the demon open the eyes of the blind? I may be disqualified for many, but I open the eyes of the blind. Those that see are completely sure, happy, and fulfilled. Their true identity has manifested, and they can also say, He is God of gods. We are gods.